Good morning, everyone. Special thanks to Now Telecom, to Mel and his team. APTelecom has been running since 2021. We've been the administrator for the United States State Department's EAP, East Asia Pacific Bureau, a program called Cables. Cables has been primarily tasked with improving diversity, security, and resilience in the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-Pacific region is tasked with the Cables program. There's 23 countries in the program, and the Philippines is one of those 23 countries. Today I have about 17, 18 slides that I wanted to share with you all. And we're not political people. We are subject matter experts in submarine cables. We've built roughly 35 submarine cable systems since 2010, from Brazil to West Africa, transatlantic, all around the world. We're just going to provide some insights from an education perspective as to what we see regarding trusted networks on a global basis and the economics associated with them. This material that's available on the slide deck is in a Cables library. If anybody would like access to the Cables library, you do not have to take copious notes. This is not a test. You're not in school, so you don't have to write anything down. This information is readily available. Our goal and our objective today is to make sure that everyone has better understanding of what submarine cables are, how they work, and how important they are to the lives that we all lead. We also have global submarine cable maps that my colleague Alex Chase has. We have about a half a dozen of these, and if anybody would like one, feel free to come over and get one. You can put them up on your wall, and if we run out, just give us your business card. We're very happy to make sure you get one. We'll mail it to you. Okay. So let's move on to the first. Okay. So it's been mentioned that undersea cables are the backbone of the global communications network. So whether it's commerce, whether it's entertainment, I was watching this morning my beloved New York Yankees baseball team losing to the Seattle Mariners on MLB.TV, which no doubt was running on a submarine cable before I came to the hotel this morning. But again, that's an example of what we're using submarine cables for, whether it be entertainment, whether it be commerce, whether it be education. As we all saw during the COVID period, submarine cables became very, very important. And I think everybody would concede the fact that a lot of the global communication networks bent, but they did not break. So there was enough resiliency, there was enough additional capacity to provide for what the world needed on a global basis in terms of making sure that we can all communicate with each other. The overall cables takeaway that we continue to see on a global basis is that with generational AI, with artificial intelligence, with cloud computing, more and more connectivity is going to be required to link continents. To give you an analogous example, using a lateral route, what we refer to in the submarine cable industry as nylon, NY meaning New York, LON meaning London, the nylon route, there's expected to be 41, that's 41, just over 40, submarine cables, new submarine cable systems that are going to be required between Western Europe, Great Britain, and the eastern seaboard of the United States. That's the amount of capacity that we're talking about to keep up with the demand. Demand is doubling exponentially. We're seeing demand increase anywhere from 20 to 22 months in a doubling fashion. So the amount of capacity that's required is tremendous that we're going to see by 2030. Next slide. Okay. Just by show of hands here, anybody that can guess the number of submarine cables that are active in the world today wins a map. So anybody have a guess as to how many active lit submarine cables there are today in the world on a global basis? John, I think you may have heard this before, but I'm gonna let you go. Go ahead. Yeah, you're close, but so you may get a map. Anybody else have any guesses? No? Okay. Anybody? I saw a hand up. No? Okay. So the number, next slide, is actually 436. There's 436. Alex, give John a map so he can throw darts at it. There's 436 active submarine cable systems in the world today. The smallest system connects Ireland to the United Kingdom. And that system, Celtic Connect, is about 500 kilometers. That provides a lot of cloud computing. Ireland has tremendous cloud computing centers that provide connectivity with their favorable tax rate to the United States as well as Western Europe and including the UK post-Brexit. How thick are undersea cables? Well, in general, I'm not sure if folks in the Philippines or here in Manila, if you do a lot of gardening or you water your flowers or water your grass, but it's about the size of this microphone, maybe a little bit smaller. And imagine your hose that you would have in your backyard or your lawn to water your lawn or water your flowers. That's about roughly the size of how large a submarine cable is. The cable itself is not protected when it's on the ocean floor. So that picture that's depicted right there is actual double armor protection. That typically happens when external aggression, whether it's a trawler for fishing or it's potentially coming ashore the submarine cable and it needs to be secure, you would actually use double armor protection. That armor would provide some form of a shield and a barrier for any external aggression that may happen, whether that's human or otherwise. Okay, how do cables actually lay on the bottom of the ocean floor? Well, the cables that leave the West Pacific, so from the Philippines, say from Davos to the western seaboard of the United States, they actually sit on the bottom of the ocean floor predicated on gravity. So when the cable is installed and laid, the cable reaches a depth where the ocean floor does not go any further, and it simply holds its position on the ocean floor. There is some gravitational as well as tidal give of a cable over the lifespan of the submarine cable, which is typically 15 to 20 years. So when a cable goes into water, it's a multi-decade solution. And the planning of a submarine cable takes quite a long time. To build between, going back to the base case model between New York and London, to actually build a cable, which is about 3,400 miles, call it about 6,000 kilometers, that cable itself would take about 4.5 months to install the cable between, say, Portsmouth, the United Kingdom, and say Manasquan or Wall, Tuckerton, or Shirley, Long Island on the eastern seaboard of the United States. They would meet in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But the planning for that cable to get from the east coast of the US to, say, Great Britain would actually take almost 14 months. The reason why cables take so long is that you don't want to traverse, you don't want to intersect where existing cables are, because that creates a point of failure. We have a very simple rule in the submarine cable industry, and that rule is that you want to create an evergreen, a new route, a new right of way. And a new right of way enables you to achieve network diversity and resiliency. So as now Telecom looks at building their network, they want to make sure that they have new rights of way, that they're creating diversity for the betterment of the entire industry, the entire ICT ecosystem, okay? We mentioned Celtic Connect between Ireland and the United Kingdom. The longest cable in the world today actually does land in the Philippines. It's called the AAG, America Asia Gateway. That system was deployed in 2008. It's coming to the end of its useful life. And that system in particular has had tremendous issues south of Hong Kong, which I'll cover in a couple of slides from now. We are going to talk a little bit about what trusted networks are. From a definition perspective, and again, just simply for vocabulary and definition perspectives, trusted are countries such as the United States, Japan, or France. So the largest submarine cable manufacturer in Calais, in France, is Alcatel, ASN. Alcatel has built roughly 40% of the world's submarine cable systems. They're an excellent organization. They have a strong track record for research and development in Calais as well as in Paris. The second operator hails from Japan, and the Japanese operator is called NEC. The team at NEC has a strong subject matter expertise in the Indo-Pacific region. They've also deployed submarine cable connectivity in various parts of the world for the last 85, 90 years. The third operator is based in Newington in New Hampshire, in New England, just north of Boston. That company is called Subcom. Subcom was actually from Bell Labs, from AT&T Labs, when they were divested. And they're currently held by Cerebus, a private equity capital group in New York. Suppliers that, if you could just go back, suppliers that are more trustworthy are headquartered in a country that does have respect for rule of law. They're not the companies that I mentioned from Japan, France, or the United States do not answer to their respective domicile government in terms of having to share information, perhaps as an untrusted supplier. In general, a trusted supplier has undergone tremendous research and development. There is a very high barrier to entry to getting into submarine cables. The R&D for a repeater, which actually amplifies the signal to get from point A to point B. And again, going back to the New York-London example, it takes roughly 33 repeaters to cross the Atlantic. So for every 100 miles to get from New York to London, you would put a repeater to amplify the signal. And that signal would create an optimal path to make sure that the signal doesn't have degradation, that it's not too high and it's not too low. Repeaters cost about $1 million per pop. They're a large cost component of a submarine cable. To get from the Philippines to Los Angeles takes roughly 55 to 62 repeaters, depending on your repeater spacing. The more aggressive you are, meaning the less repeaters you want to use on a system, you can save money. Your CapEx cost is low, but you also technically are pushing the limits of technology in terms of the signal performance. So not all submarine cables are created equal. There are many cables that have multiple repeaters, and the repeater spacing isn't 100 miles. It may be 40 miles, 50 miles, because they're looking for a safe cable that has a strong operational track record. Okay, and a large part of that is predicated on the design of the system. Okay, I talked a little bit about undersea cable construction being a high-risk business and a high barrier to entry. There's a long track record within the trusted community from Japan, France, and the United States that actually engages in a large form of collaboration. Similar to the aviation industry, it's imperative that when there's submarine cable faults, that there is a shared know-how as to what occurred, what happened. So best practices are implemented to avoid that outage from happening again in the future. Okay, so it's quite transparent among the three operators. The testing is rigorous. Before a cable is deployed in the water, the repeaters have a very high threshold to be deployed. Once a repeater and a cable is deployed in the water, it's not easy to pick up. It's actually very challenging and it's very costly. So we like to say in the submarine cable industry, get it right the first time. Because if you don't, you're going to be living with a very problematic broken cable over the next 15, 20 years, which is not ideal, okay? Repeatability and traceability is something that is fairly important. If you are considering an untrusted option, please keep this in mind, that a untrusted supplier has actually not built a system and decommissioned. They have not retired a system yet. So there's a lot of unknown with regards to what's going to happen in year 15, year 20. Is it going to make that 15 or 20-year mark? Are they able to achieve that lifespan from cradle to splash in the water to decommission? Some of the advantages of using a trusted vendor, again, from NEC of Japan, ASN of France, or Subcom of the United States, is that they're able to have interoperability. So a Subcom system that lands in, say, Marseille in France, that also connects to Singapore, is landing at an ASN location effectively. But they're able to do that because there's compatibility. So if you're looking at an untrusted system, that untrusted system would struggle to land in all locations. And the way to look at this is, do you want a cable or do you want a network that's meshed and that's able to have interoperability between systems? That's the key metric as you look at building your network. The name of the game, whether you're a mobile network operator or whether you're a submarine cable operator or you're a fixed home line provider, is to make sure that your networks remain on. Because if the network's down, customers are not happy and you're not able to provide service. So with trusted networks, they have the highest period of on-time performance, and they're also able to interconnect with other networks that provide a mesh topology. That mesh topology creates mini rings, and mini rings enables you to have better on-time performance. The goal of any country or any company should be to achieve 5 nines of resiliency. Okay, the Philippines currently lands 14 submarine cable systems today. The Philippines is not at 5 nines. Close, they're at 3 nines. And I'd say the Philippines is probably in need of another 7 to 9 submarine cable systems in the next 4 to 5 years to get to the 5.9 level. Why is the 5.9 level, 99.999999, so important? Well, it's really important for commercial consideration. One of the key things that we continue to hear as we travel to the Philippines, this is our 5th trip in the last 2.5 years, is the BPO, the call center industry, employs a lot of Filipinos. It's an important component of the national output, the GDP of the Philippines. But we're also hearing that without 5 nines, it's very difficult to run generational AI. It's also very difficult to run what President Marcos said yesterday at the Indo-Pacific Business Forum, getting from a BPO player to a knowledge processing outsourcer, and a KPO, from a BPO to a KPO. That's a big jump. And that's not a jump that is required for more workforce training or more skilled labor in the Philippines. The Philippines has that. What the Philippines requires is more trusted supply of submarine cable connectivity. That will help make that leap from being a BPO center to being a KPO center. One of the concerns that we are seeing in the market from an APTelecom point of view is that the vendor actions of an untrusted supplier are highlighted here in these 4 points. The first is signal intercept. I think Mel covered it well enough in terms of any nefarious activity, so I'm not going to highlight that. But signal intercept can happen on a layer 1 basis of a submarine cable. We like to say in the submarine cable business in general that without fiber, you don't have cyber. So no fiber, no cyber, right? The concern of signal denial is a real issue. One of the countries that APTelecom had the opportunity to visit Last year, we've been there actually 8 times in the last 2.5 years, is Vietnam. Unfortunately, Vietnam lost its entire submarine cable connectivity in 2022. They were down hard. All 6 submarine cables were severely affected. Vietnam lived through a signal denial issue. That has implications for foreign direct investment. That has implications for job growth, employment of Vietnamese nationals. The concern that was seen in Vietnam is applicable potentially in the Philippines. And the reason why I'm raising this as a case study and a lateral learning example is that by choosing an untrusted supplier, if relations sour in 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, with a particular country, signal denial is something that can be used against you. The Vietnamese went through this same experience. This is not hypothetical. Vietnam had a dispute in a body of water, East China Sea, South China Sea, and they paid the price for having their submarine cables not working. Again, it's gray zone. It's very difficult to have a quantitative perspective as to did someone go out and cut a cable? Well, it's hard to qualify that, but the reality is that Vietnam did have denial of service from a fiber perspective. This wasn't a cyber layer 3 attack. This is actually a layer 1 infrastructure issue. And the Indo-Pacific region should be extremely concerned about this. There is concern that the BPO industry in the Philippines could potentially shut down with a signal denial scenario. So if all international cables were cut, the Philippines doesn't have terrestrial capability. Similar to Ireland or Great Britain, the Philippines is an island. And how can you mitigate that risk? There's a couple ways potentially that you can do it. One is through marine spatial planning, putting your cable landing stations in very different parts of the Philippines. So you're using north, south, east, west. You're creating what's called separation spatial planning. So if one node, one location goes down, say in the northeast, you may still have Batangas or Davos in the south that can provide diversity while you look to rectify what happened. Okay. Mel covered off the acquisition of personal information and the vulnerabilities. So I'm not going to really spend more time on that. And again, this information is available in our cables library if you all would like to have it. There are economic consequences of using untrusted suppliers. And in our cables library, what we specialize in at APTelecom is financial modeling. We do offtake agreements. We've done about $2.2 billion in industry transactions since 2009. One thing that we would like to share with everyone, you can cater the Excel model. I actually sent it out to some of the folks from Ben, who's laughing right there, so we got a smile on his face. But we did have the ability to provide that Excel model to you in all seriousness, Ben, so you can run your analysis. And we welcome the audience here in the Philippines to look at what is the cost implication of going with an untrusted supplier versus a trusted supplier. The initial sugar high, the initial indication is that, yeah, the trusted supplier may be 20% more expensive than an untrusted supplier. But that's actually the wrong way of looking at it. The economic modality of the financial model looks at what's called TCO, total cost of ownership, right? So if you look at the total cost of ownership, building a system, again, using the example between New York and London, is roughly $300 million CapEx, capital expenditure, your initial upfront cost. To look at your operational expenditure, your OpEx, to run that system for 20 years is another 60% of the 300 million. So it's another $180 million. So your total cost of ownership to get from New York to London on a submarine cable total is $480 million, 480. The concern with an untrusted supplier is really very simple. An untrusted supplier can only sell to 30% of the market. Again, I'll say it again. An untrusted supplier in the submarine cable world can only sell to 30% of the market. Again, this is not an American or French or Japanese official government policy. This is us as a private consulting company that specializes in research. Our team based in Boston and in Providence, Rhode Island, New England, are some of the finest economists who graduated from MIT. They have the ability to look and analyze the market. And what we continue to see is that the untrusted supplier does not have the ability to address the total market of potential buyers. Large hyperscalers such as Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon will not purchase capacity on untrusted systems. They're concerned about the points that were raised, such as intellectual property theft and other things. I'm not going to focus in on those points. I'm just simply here to say to everybody in the room that if you are looking at an untrusted option, recognize that you will not have tenants on that system to pay for your OpEx over the next 2 decades. The financial model that we have in our cables library, we welcome everyone to manipulate the model to enter in assumptions with your costs, your distance, look at your pricing schedule, and the model will financially calculate what your return on investment would be with trusted versus untrusted. The economic argument should be the most compelling argument to proceed with a trusted solution. In addition to the security concerns that were raised, but the economic modality of making the decision based on economics is very clear. And again, we encourage everyone, if you're interested, come see us after the show, give us your business card, and we're very happy to send you the Excel model, and you can model away, put in your various assumptions for whatever type of submarine cable infrastructure you're looking at potentially deploying. I've got a few minutes left. I just wanted to spend time on Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, on FCPA. The untrusted supplier has built systems that are not cheap, that are used as a vehicle to provide cover for potentially corruption. There's also concerns about default on assets. In Cameroon, there is a system called SAIL. That system currently is in a fairly difficult situation financially. It's not clear if the state-owned enterprise that built that system will actually come in and require collateral at the port of that asset, whether a concession would need to be made at the port. It's not very clear. So there are what we would call beta counterparty risk concerns about contracting with an untrusted supplier because it is not a private entity. You're dealing with a government entity. And that remains a concern in terms of your potential exposure if you do have a business case that doesn't prove out to be successful. Is there nationalization aspects where you'd actually have to give away sovereign parts of your country in order to pay down the potential debt or equity associated with the purchase? Just high level, this talks a little bit about the attributes of untrusted suppliers. I had mentioned, and I'm not sure how legible this is, if everybody can read it, because it's quite small, the font, but the sustainability aspect in terms of the 25 years for an untrusted supplier versus a track record of secure repeaters and a strong performance basis from the trusted community from Japan, France, to the United States. Next slide. Okay. There is a screening tool, a mechanism to help with adjudication with your RFP process that APTelecom offers. And again, we're here to transfer any sort of knowledge, subject matter expertise that you are looking for if you're potentially going to buy the submarine cable. The number of projects that have been completed, the delays, there's been suspension of the project from a trusted versus untrusted perspective. the total number of international subsea cable projects that are complete today. I had mentioned 436 submarine cable systems globally. Out of the 436, only 29 are untrusted. The rest are trusted. From a pure quantitative perspective, I think that speaks volumes to the amount of liquidity that exists on a global basis that is actually trusted. We talked a little bit about this. One thing to consider, again, I'm not going to spend time on the government side. Everyone can read that themselves, but audited financials is quite important when looking at a supplier. Is a supplier able to have the balance sheet to complete what they need to complete from a rep and warranty perspective? So there is probably no secret that there is a property crisis, a debt issue in terms of your neighbor to the north here. If the government pulls the plug on the subsidies for that particular state-owned enterprise, would they have the ability from a balance sheet perspective to continue to make repeaters, which costs roughly $1 million per repeater? Would they have the balance sheet to be able to see a high barrier to entry of this industry? It's very capital intensive. So from a financial perspective, looking at the balance sheet in terms of the trusted parties is quite important. And the last point that I would make is that the culture of research and development is very important. As technology continues to move at an exponential pace, research and development is critical to make sure that your submarine cable has the latest and greatest technology, all the latest bells and whistles on it. Trusted maintenance and repair of an undersea cable. There was an article recently in the Wall Street Journal as a couple of days ago regarding the installation of submarine cables is critical, but also maintenance and repair. So in the event that more submarine cables come to the Philippines, which are anticipated in the next 4 to 6 years, the Philippines, as the rest of ASEAN, should be quite concerned in their vendor selection. There are trusted maintenance and repair companies such as OMS that are headquartered in Malaysia. They're owned by the KKR group. KT Marine of South Korea offers trusted maintenance and repair. And the team at NEC also offers trusted maintenance and repair. Again, there is a potential backdoor. If you're building, again, using the New York to London example with a trusted supplier, but your maintenance and repair is an untrusted party, there's potential nefarious backdoor availability that can render itself to an untrusted supplier. The reason why we put the slide up here is quite simple. Trusted suppliers, NEC, ASN, and Subcom from Japan, France, and the United States, they allow third-party monitoring and evaluation. They allow independent observers to go onto the ship while the ship is installing or maintaining or repairing. The untrusted supplier does not permit that. Their crew is staffed only by the home nationality. They don't have a diverse workforce. There's been multiple incidents of disabling of AIS, automatic identification system, which is the beacon signal for the actual maintenance and repair vessel or the installation vessel. Anytime AIS is disabled, it's dangerous for the crew, it's dangerous for other ships in the open sea, and it's also not in accordance with the International Cable Protection Committee. It's not best practice. And if AIS is being turned off, this should be a source of concern when selecting a supplier. We talked a little bit about best practices with the International Cable Protection Committee and folks that are mindful of the repair process. Unfortunately, Some countries in the Asia Pacific region, geographically, the way they're located, have complexity in terms of routing, meaning north, south, east, and west. The Philippines doesn't really have that issue. The Philippines is very blessed with regards to open access to the Western Pacific. You have an eastbound path to Guam, Hawaii, and the western seaboard of the United States that is away from the South China Sea, which certainly has disputes right now. You also have unfettered southbound access that enables you to build connectivity without interference. So this, from a subsea perspective for undersea cable development, bodes well for the Philippines. From a digital infrastructure perspective, you're able to develop corridors without requiring your neighbor's approval, even in international water. I didn't want to spend a ton of time on it, but it is important that we talk about the economics of the South China Sea and what's happening right now. Within the blue line is a 9-dash line. In the last 3 years, we continue to see the submarine cable industry, whether you're Globe, PLDT, whether you're AT&T or Verizon in the United States, or Deutsche Telekom, or Google, or Meta, large hyperscalers, to avoid this body of water. And the reason why is very simple. Permits have been weaponized. So permits in international waters to maintain, install, and repair cables are not able to occur at the normal progression that they did before 2009. The rules have changed. We're not saying that everyone agrees with the rules or is going to apply for permits in international waters, because then you're ratifying someone's potential actions, albeit illegal. The concern is very simple from an economics perspective. There are two systems. The first is called SJC2, Singapore Japan Cable. The other is Asia Direct Cable, ADC. These two systems have been delayed for almost 3 years to reach Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. The operators that are consortium members of these two cable systems have lost close to $80 to $100 million each. And it's not a function of capital. It's not a function of technical know-how to get the cable done and built. They can't traverse this body of water. They're not allowed to, because they are requiring permits in this body of water. So what we're starting to see is, from Singapore, as well as other parts of Southeast Asia, cables simply going south. They're taking a southbound route, avoiding this body of water, because they don't want to get involved in the politics of permits. Permits are not something that should be weaponized against the submarine cable industry. The submarine cable industry strives to get connectivity of 5 nines, and it also strives to ensure that the lowest mean time to repair, meaning how quick it is to repair your cable, is achieved. The takeaway that we're hearing from industry operators is very simple. We're not going to build in this body of water, but the good thing for the Philippines is that if you look at the map, and again, my cartography may be wrong on geography, but I think Davos is somewhere down here. So the Philippines is able to actually pick up a lot of traffic originating in Southeast Asia to avoid this body of water. And again, this is something that's going to continue as we continue to see a stalemate of permits that have been weaponized for maintenance and repair, and especially the installation game for submarine cables, unfortunately. We talked a little bit about best practices and the sharing of risk and incident data. The International Cable Protection Committee, ICPC, is headquartered in the United Kingdom. It's a nonprofit. ICPC promotes best practices for submarine cable policies. Some of the policies that ICPC promotes, allowing for third-party monitoring and observation, to allow an independent third party to supervise installation, maintenance, and repair. The ICPC recommends, for safety of the crew, as well as safety of data integrity, that the AIS, the automatic identifying system, the beacon, the GPS, so to speak, of an actual cable ship remains on. Untrusted suppliers are not adhering to ICPC regulations and recommendations of best practices. Again, we're not here, and I'm not here to preach a Pax Americana of what you should or should not do for your country. I think you should make the best decision. It's your money, but what you should do is be aware of the economics. The economics of going through the South China Sea, those delays, the economics of choosing an untrusted supplier that only 30% of the market will buy, 70% of the market will not buy on an untrusted system. Currently, last slide, next slide. Currently in the Philippines, it is scheduled in the second quarter of 2025 and the fourth quarter of 2025, maybe Q1 of 2026, that two untrusted systems, ALC, Alpha Lima Charlie, ALC, and the second system, SEA H2X, are slated to land here in the Philippines, two untrusted systems. We are publishing a paper that's available on our website as well as our cables library that talks about the economic implications for the Philippines of landing those two systems. And again, your decision, it's best what's best for the Philippines, but there are BPO contracts, RFPs, that are bypassing the Philippines because the Philippines, unlike India, is landing on trusted submarine cable networks. The Philippines has made a decision that you, in the past, your prior administration, Verte, perhaps wanted to have trusted and untrusted and thought that there could be separation. And maybe you're right, maybe there could be, maybe I'm wrong. But the golden rule is the person with the gold makes the rule. The BPO industry is looking at other locations because they're concerned about financial data going on untrusted networks, supply networks, particularly for submarine cables, as well as healthcare information or other sensitive data riding on untrusted submarine cables. So our recommendation would be to look at a review of those two systems, ALC, Asia Link Cable, and SEA H2X. Does it make sense for those two systems to land here and have a negative impact on your BPO industry? Because that employs thousands of Filipinos, that contributes a large part to the national output, to the GDP of the Philippines. And that's an economic argument. That's not even a national security argument. And the economics of that, we can quantify. And we have a specific paper that's not being sponsored by USG or anyone. It's being sponsored by corporations like Bank of America that are looking at the economics. Does it make sense to still come to the Philippines if, in fact, we're going to be on untrusted networks? So I think USTDA talked a little bit about their program this morning, so I'm not going to talk about their seed capital that they give for projects such as Now Telecom or other projects such as RISE that Connectivity Capital are involved in. And congratulations. Okay, just 30 seconds. I don't want to make sure I'm not running too late here. From a conclusion perspective for you all to take away. This represents, from a key takeaway perspective, that trusted networks have a higher value to your owners and customers. If you want to build a stadium and a stadium only, go ahead, buy an untrusted system. If you want to build an industry and become a hub, buy trusted, because it's your quickest path to become that digital hub. The second point is that the return on investment for your CapEx and your OpEx does require interoperability with trusted vendors from an equipment and installation, maintenance, and repair and routing perspective. And the last point, I know Miranda from USTDA highlighted is that the United States does have financing capabilities for seed capital in the form of USDA or DFC or XM. So if you have a great business plan and you're looking for support or assistance, there is help. APTelecom is here to help. We're not looking for any financial money. The program that we're running on behalf of the State Department is a grant. It's a nonprofit grant. We're here to provide any sort of subject matter expertise or training. Our background is academic, kind of academia. We're not here to take a position. We'd like to work you through your business plan so you make the best decision. You have the best information possible. One of the things from an American perspective or a Western European perspective is that we're here to transfer knowledge. We're not using knowledge as power against you. We want to make sure that you have the information available for you to make the best decision making when you talk to folks for your execution of your business. So again, thanks to Now Telecom.